Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So, I'm only trying to scare you a little bit. So, the kind of things that can go wrong in a co-op. That's one of you should have a handout on this subject, right? What does it look like? What can go wrong? It looks like this. So, a lot of people receive benefits in one way or another, including WIT, Section 8 Social Security income, free or subsidized medical care because we live in Massachusetts. Thanks, Massachusetts. Sometimes those things are income dependent, so if you don't have any income right now and you're collecting something like that, when your income goes up from the co-op, you might hit some kind of a threshold. Usually there's some kind of a threshold where you can lose or reduce your benefits. One of the members in Cerro Co-op just turned 62 and took early retirement. So he's only, if he makes more than $15,000 a year, his Social Security check goes down, and he doesn't want that to happen. So you just got to keep in mind that that's a possibility. In general, we think it's a really good idea if our incomes go up, right? We like that. But sometimes they go up just enough to bump us off these benefits, but not enough to really support us. So you have to be strategic about that.
Yeah. I would imagine if you're creative, there's ways of redistributing, or so to speak, redistributing that extra income to where it doesn't really affect your salary.
I would say people have found lots of ways to be creative in that kind of way. Yes. But I would not recommend any of that.
No.
Okay, so this picture here is talking about liability. And liability is the thing that you want to know about. Two different kinds of liability I'm going to tell you about. Financial liability and legal liability, right? So there's this thing that people call a corporate veil or a corporate shield. Usually it's called a corporate shield. And what that corporate shield means is that if you form a corporation, let's see, if you don't form a corporation, if you're just a guy who goes out and is working for people, if you go to somebody's house and do some work on somebody's house, and you don't have any corporation around you, you're just a sole proprietor. You go to somebody's house, let's say you rip the gutters off of their house accidentally, and they come crashing to the ground. And they sue you because they want their gutters put back on. There's nothing standing in the way between their lawsuit and you, right? That lawsuit's going to come after you individually, right? And they're going to come after you to get whatever they can from you. The corporate veil, what this means is that you're putting kind of a shield in between yourself and that customer's lawsuit. So when you form a corporation or an LLC is a limited liability company. And both corporations and LLCs create this veil. And what that means is that if you are incorporated and you go to somebody's house and you rip the gutters off the house and they decide to sue you, they can still sue you, but they can only sue the corporation. And they can only take the assets of the corporation instead of your personal assets, instead of your house, your car, your money in the bank, right? You had a question about that or a comment? Okay.
But in some cases, can't they also still sue you?
Yes.
They just probably wouldn't. Because like our nonprofit organization has organizational insurance, and so when we drive, they tell us that, in the event of an accident, if you're driving for a work-related purpose, someone is probably going to sue the organization because we have a much deeper policy, but there's nothing to stop them from suing you as an individual.
As an individual?
Like a civil suit.
Like if I'm driving coworkers to a conference, and it's like, well, I'm being paid, it's during work hours, I'm using my car for work purposes, they could, or I think driving youth is like probably a better example, and then I like violate the law, crash a car or something like that, they still could sue me. Yeah, I think that,
I think you should assume that everybody can sue you for anything, right? That's a good assumption. What you do to set up this corporation is to protect yourself from some of that. I won't tell you that you can protect yourself completely. You know, if your hot sauce, if you don't take the right precautions with your hot sauce and you make somebody sick, you're going to be in trouble. And you can form a corporation or an LLC, and you can get liability insurance in order to protect you from these things, and you should. That's why they exist, because people make mistakes, and especially in food, people get sick all the time, and that's why people have liability insurance. But basically, one of the things I'm trying to tell you here is that that corporation is set up to protect you to a certain extent. It's not going to protect you 100%, right? The other thing is, it's only going to protect you if you follow all the rules of that corporation or LLC. There's a lot of rules, right? Does anybody, who has formed one already? Do you guys have an LLC or corporation? What do you have to do with your LLC to keep it active?
I mean, there's like an annual fee we have to pay to the state of Rhode Island, $500 to operate as a business.
Yeah.
We have to file legal paperwork. We have to like register ourselves as a business with the commerce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are all things that may sound like they're no big deal and not something that it's really, really common for businesses to overlook this, especially in the first few years. But all of that stuff that you just described, the paying the annual fee, the filing the papers every year, that is this corporate veil, right? That is how you construct that protection for yourself. Because if something bad happens and people do, and some lawyer takes a look at your business and finds out that you haven't been filing those papers, they're going to say there is no corporation. They haven't been keeping their corporation up, and that protection is not going to be there, and they'll come after you personally.
Is that protection? Is that in the eyes of like the insurance company? So basically, if you are in good standing in terms of an organization and you have insurance with the company, would that cover you?
Yeah.
Even if you like.
Yeah. If you're doing everything you're supposed to at the corporate level, and you have insurance like you're supposed to, and you have some kind of an accident, like you ripped the gutters off of somebody's house accidentally, that's what your insurance is set up to cover. So they're going to cover that. But if your insurance company notices that you're having a lot of these kind of mishaps and you're costing them a lot of money, they can drop you. So you don't want to abuse this. You want to use it as little as possible. So that's legal liability. There's also financial liability. One of the things that happens in any kind of a business is that when you, like in the construction industry, we always had vendor accounts at the lumber yard, right? So the way it works in construction is that I'm the contractor and I'm going to you. You're a homeowner and I want to work on your house. So you pay me a deposit, but I've got people I need to pay over here. I need to pay my vendors, right? So the vendor gives me credit so I can buy the materials, so I can go to your house, do the work, and then you pay me and I pay back my vendor, right? So that credit that I get from my vendor is really, really important in the construction industry, and it's important in a lot of industries. So that's what greases the wheels. But those vendors, those lumber yards, they know about this corporate veil, and they are not having this at all. Because if you default on your credit and you don't pay them what you were supposed to make on that job, they're not gonna say, oh well, you're a corporation, I guess we can't get our money. So what they do is that they ask you to sign a personal guarantee for the loan, right? And that means that you're like pushing aside this corporate veil business. You're saying, I don't need that. If I don't pay it back, go ahead and come after me. Go ahead and come after my house and my car and my bank account. That's fine. And I've seen this happen, and it's ugly when it happens. This is really common that, especially in a startup business, people might ask you to sign a personal guarantee for a line of credit, for a vendor account, and you should be really careful about this. Sometimes in construction, you have to do it because there's no other way to operate. But you should just be aware that that's what's happening when you sign that guarantee. So, how far down we get? Are you scared yet? How to lose your money, part 1. You can lose your money. When you sign up to be an investor in your business, when you're an owner of a business, you put in your own money. And it might be cash that you put in up front, or it might be deferred wages that you've agreed to put into your account as an owner, or it might be the profits at the end of the year that you didn't take out in cash but you reinvested back into the business. All of those are your investment in the company, right? If the company doesn't do well, you can lose that money, and it can be thousands of dollars. But if you follow good governance, you should minimize your risk of losing anything but that money that you've put in. A lot of people put a very low threshold and say, we want anybody to be able to join this cooperative. We're going to make the cost of joining $1, because we don't want it to be a barrier for people. Other co-ops, I know of co-ops where the fee for joining is like $15,000 for a really big fancy company that a lot of people want to join. Whatever the membership fee that you put in your first year, you can lose that money if the business doesn't go well, right? Because you're the owner, you're the investor, and you're putting that money at risk when you sign up. Anybody unclear about that? Yeah.
Well, how does that, I guess, and I'll wait for always the break. I'm really like, well, I think this is going to come up later. Like, how does that work with youth?
Yeah.
Like, if it's a youth co-op, how do you minimize those risks when you're working with under 18?
Do you guys want to answer that at all? I think you've gotten further down this road than most people I know.
Well, I don't know with youth, but like when I joined Connections Co-op, we had work trades, so we could work our payment. So like half of my pay will go to pay for the investment my other coworkers had done, or like, you know, all the expenses, because I didn't have money. And some people put up money up front. So they like had like a quarter, like I think it was like $500 to join, and I couldn't pay the $500, so I worked my way up.
Mm-hmm. And that's really common. Co-ops will often do that. So sometimes it's like Sarah Co-op that I'm working with in Boston. They've decided that their membership fee should be $4,000 per member, which is high, and nobody has that much money to just write a check. So what they're going to do is they're going to take a payroll deduction of like $1 off their wages every hour that they work for the first 2 years. And that money, every hour that they work, $1 will go into their account. But they'll be able to vote as a full member from the beginning. But yeah, we should probably, we're going to get late, so we should probably talk. You can talk to me during the break if you want.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You gotta pay your taxes, you gotta pay payroll taxes, you gotta pay sales taxes. You gotta be really careful about your taxes. If you're not really careful about your taxes, they're gonna put a sign like this on your door, and all your neighbors are gonna know you didn't pay your taxes. So, pay your taxes. And just again, as an entrepreneur, you're taking the risk and you're getting the reward, right? So when you're the owner of a worker co-op, when you're a member owner, you are that entrepreneur, right? This is your business. You're the one who's going to stay up late at night wondering if it's going to work. You're the one who's going to put your money in to invest, and you're the one who's going to benefit if it does well. So that's about the end of that section. So let's get up and loosen up now that we're all happy.